Builders, backstories, breakthroughs. This is the Journey in Conversation.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the very first published episode of the Journey in Conversation. We have a spectacular guest here with us today, Katelyn McArdle, the founder of Functional Authority LLC. Hey, Katelyn, how are you doing?
Hey, Paul. Thanks so much for having me and for the opportunity.
I'm really glad that you could join us. Let's dive right in. I'm sure people are going to be curious about your origin story. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, where you've been, what you're doing now? Give us a little bit of like a précis, kind of an introduction to Katelyn McArdle and Functional Authority.
Sure, happy to. So I'm about 2 years into leading my own business, which has been a really exciting shift after having worked in nonprofits and digital strategy for over 10 years. I really loved working in organizations that were especially in periods of transition, like they were thinking about the first time or creating a digital advertising program for the first time. And so coming in to help guide what is the organization looking for, and what do all the stakeholders need, and then how does that translate to decision making about tools and systems and marketing approaches, and what does the audience ultimately expect and look for, and then merging all of those things. So systems, tools, and storytelling. And so now I'm excited to be working with multiple organizations that are in those periods of growth and transition too. So it could be small businesses or startup organizations and nonprofits. And really those purpose-driven angles mean a lot to me too. So I look forward or interested in giving back to their community too.
Yeah, and purpose is such a relevant word for what we do. As people working in the private sector, we don't tend to think about purpose as much as they do in the nonprofit, the NGO, or public sector. And there's been this trend of purpose converging into the private sector and really help giving people their own momentum, their personal fulfillment, kind of their meaning behind what they're doing. That's kind of a growing part of what I see anyway. A lot of small business owners are starting to do. So, it's great that you're focused on that. And certainly change is the only thing that's constant in life. And there is lots of change out there right now. So I'd imagine that you are a very busy lady, or about to be a very, very busy lady. Let's fast forward to now. What are you up to now? You mentioned that you're with Functional Authority, you're helping teams kind of transition through, but is there anything that is your sweet spot, what you really, really focus on in your day-to-day today?
Yes. One of the reasons I chose the name Functional Authority is I wanted to help with functional decision-making and putting everyone in the position of being able to understand the marketing decisions that they're making or why they chose a system, and that doesn't just rest with one person, but it's owned by the team and the organization, and there's buy-in that happens across the whole organization. So I think a coaching component and really working with the clients that I have and helping them understand it's not just my decision that I'm making in working with you, but it will be yours. So if we're only working together for one project, then I see it as I definitely have to help find that handoff point so that they're able to take it and run from. I think that's so important in helping everyone understand how and why they've built something, even if they weren't the ones responsible for all of the ins and outs of each piece.
Yeah, again, it's interesting you bring up that handoff point thing. You think about traditional consulting, like we're both consultants, part of what we do, and you think about consultants, and I've always had that kind of picture of the House of Lies consultant, where they go in, they kind of work behind the scenes, and they just find ways to bill clients out of money, to overbill for time, and create reasons for their own existence. So having an exit point, I feel, and having that exit point defined ahead of time with your clients is such an important part of building trust and being completely transparent. So I'm glad you brought that up. Let's open up our time travel machine a little bit. You said you've been doing this for like 2 years now. Think back to your first couple of months. What was that like? What was your first couple of months like? Because everyone, they say, oh, let's start a business, and then they kind of start a business, and they get into this period of like, oh wow, what was yours like?
hmm I was just doing my best, and I think many people are in the beginning. Just the experimentation is so important, and just being able to come to
Yeah.
terms with, I will probably fail multiple times, and I'm not really sure what this looks like yet. So I think looking back, I wish I could pat myself on the back for just taking a risk. Like just keep trying and keep doing it. But I do remember making my website for the first time, and I felt like it's really important for me to have a good one because I'm in digital marketing. So I should
Yep.
probably have a good website. And I would show it to my former colleagues that I had worked with over the years, and I'd get
Yeah.
their feedback. And they said, yep, I've seen you do that. That's exactly what a project that we worked on together. That sounds good. That sounds good. And then I showed it to my dad, and he said, I'm really proud of you for taking a risk and putting yourself out there. It's like, I hear a but coming. But this makes no sense to me. Like, I don't know what any of these words mean. And he said, I think that's a problem because I think I would be your target audience, someone who doesn't understand marketing and knows that they need marketing in their business, but doesn't know where to start. So if it doesn't make sense to him, then it probably wouldn't make sense to someone that I would want to be working with. So that was very eye-opening to me, and just any chance to take in some of that feedback early stage when prospect calls didn't go well or a networking opportunity kind of fell flat. Just reflecting on those and thinking, well, why didn't it go well, and what could I learn from that can help 6 months from now?
Yeah, and it's funny. I when you were saying that, your dad was kind of like, "I'm really proud of you," and then the long trail off. I think everybody has that experience with their parents when they first start out and they're talking about what they're doing. The butt thing is it's so universal. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Thinking about that first period where your dad, he'd said, "I don't get this." Right?
Mhm.
Like I'm kind of your target audience. I don't understand this. What did you do from there? Like, did you put in place a process, or how did that change your thinking about how you communicate yourself?
Mhm. I realized that with a pattern in some of those early stage conversations that I had with prospects is that I would talk about tactics. Like I could create your
Mm.
website for you, or your first newsletter, or your first whatever the tactic was.
Yeah.
And I found that oftentimes if someone was willing to take the conversation, then they probably already had a project in mind. So getting them to talk about that and to say, what prompted you to have this conversation? What's on your mind? What are you working on? And then that's where I could really have more of a consulting conversation and say, oh, I'm understanding where you are in your business right now. And it sounds like there's a potential gap or opportunity coming where you're about to make a decision one way or another about a system, a tool, or an approach. So then I got to kind of give them an example of what it would be like to work together and send them a follow-up and say, I've been thinking about our conversation, and here are the first 2 or 3 things that I would suggest you could do. And just give them something free that's also helpful and a summary of the meeting. And if they are able to take it and run from there, then I would check in with them maybe a month later and say, how'd it go? Did you try that? Did you work on that? And often they would say, no, but I wanted to, or I don't have time, or I'm not sure how to do it. And then if they still wanted to, then I could say, I could do a one-time project for you, and then just go from there. So my pattern that I've been finding is one free coaching call, just talking peer to peer. And then maybe it can lead to a pilot project. And then that could lead to more work. Or there's that handoff point, which I'm want to be very intentional about. Like, you can take it and run now, because that was the whole point of that project.
Yeah, teach a person to fish versus give them a fish. What do you want to do? And
Right.
it sounds to me like you're really trying to provide value to the person you're talking to at every step of the way, whether it's just a conversation, just a one-on-one call, or whether it turns into more work. Like, is that your approach? Kind of show value first, and then let the money come later.
Exactly. And then it's also a really good pressure test to me, because if that part early on doesn't go well and there's no money involved yet, then if there is later and there's a contract and there was a surprise, oh, they didn't know I worked like that, or I didn't know that they weren't receptive to ideas or something, then we wouldn't be a good fit, but we'd have to break a contract, So I think I have found that I'm willing to work on an experimental project or something that's low lift, because I'll learn something and I could use it for a portfolio. I can control how much work I put into it or not. But I think that it's a good trust building exercise if it's someone I've never worked with before. And I learn a lot about them and their organization too.
Yeah, and it seems that could feed into referrals too. If you even if you don't work with somebody for very long, like if you treat them well and you treat them with kind of respect and decency and provide value along the way, even if you don't work with them again, maybe they take that positive experience and introduce you to someone else in the future. Because like one thing I've learned about entrepreneurs and people who are building things, like they know other people. So it's good to kind of stay in front of that all the time.
Right. And so I think it's also helped in positioning scope conversations so that they're project-based instead of hourly, because those can go back and forth. What does 15 hours mean? Could that mean you're not really doing that much? So I think outcomes are much more important. And if it takes me 50 hours and I only make $7 an hour because it took so much longer than it should have, then I think that's on me. Unless we've been working together for a long time and it's like eventually they're taking advantage or something. But I think that especially in the early stages, if you're able to define start, middle, and end of each project, and this is what a project cost is, and if it goes beyond that, then what do we do with it? I think that there's more trust building in each of those engagements than hourly can be very hard to justify or to be on the same page about.
Yeah, and set the expectations, because I find that for my own work anyway, like 90% of the time when you get into those situations, it's just because of the surprise.
Right.
Like there was misalignment, misunderstanding. Something that you kind of took to be obvious they didn't think was obvious or didn't consider at all. So like setting those expectations probably really helps when you're in that kind of position. You've touched on it a little bit, but I want to do time travel some more.
Yes.
So here we are, 2025. You've got Katelyn now 2 years into the business, and then we just talked about kind of Katelyn 2023. If there was one piece of advice you could give 2023 Katelyn, what would it be?
Oh, I think it would be putting myself out more. I think that I was just trying to figure it out behind the scenes and learning the lessons one conversation at a time. And I was worried about scale. And I wanted to make sure that I did a really good job with each project that I took on. So I just didn't want to bite off more than I could chew, I guess, especially while also trying to build the business. But I think it probably slowed me down a bit. And I would question, am I on the right track? Why am I doing this? I did also have contract work where I was working with an agency, and then I also had my own business. So I was split between two different, like, am I building my own thing, or should I go back to agency, or what should I do? So I think that mindset was very challenging, but also helped me see, well, I think I am ready to take the leap into my own business. So I'm glad I did it. And I think I put in the steps necessary, but just felt like I wasn't really talking to many people about it. And I was just trying to figure it out on my own, so business classes and being able to network with with people like you and being able to brainstorm and to find others that are also building helped a lot. But I didn't do that in the early stages.
Yeah. Yeah. I've certainly noticed through kind of my own stuff that being an entrepreneur, like building your own thing, it can be pretty lonely.
Yes. Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't really get what you're all about, what you're trying to do. So it's weird to have conversations with people who aren't trying to build something too, because they don't have the context or the frame of reference. So I personally think that's great advice. If I had like a little note in a bottle thing that I could throw 2 years back, I would definitely do it for you.
Yes. Yes. And I think I also took things a little bit too literally with potential opportunities or prospects. If they came through and it looked like it's a part-time job, then I treated it like a part-time job interview. Yep. When deep down, I hoped that it would turn into a project-based consulting thing that I would own, you know? And so now when I have prospect conversations, I just go up front and I say, are you open to XYZ kinds of engagements? You know, this is how I typically handle projects. Yeah. Or are you pretty set on a full-time or part-time person, you know, and just try to have that conversation up front. Yeah. But I don't think I would have done that 2 years ago. I would have been too nervous to lose the opportunity. But now I know if they're not willing to think about it that way, it probably wouldn't be a good match, which is fine. You know,
yep.
We don't have to waste each other's time. So,
yep. Let's kind of take it off on a bit of a different track and talk about motivation and mindset now. You know, I think that we're kind of at a natural kind of pivot point into that. Today, what motivates you to keep going, especially when you hit barriers, you run into things that were unexpected or make you say, oh, geez, that didn't go so well?
Yes. I think it feels so good to be able to take back my time, where now I'm able to make decisions for myself about how much I'll put into a project or how much I'll do to explore a new prospect or opportunity, compared to an employer owning your time. And I think that's just the reality of working full-time for a business, is that you don't really have much control. You must go to those meetings or you must complete these assignments in a certain amount of time. And so whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed, I think, well, if this was my choice, or if I'm having a slower week and I can go to a movie in the afternoon because I got my work done early, and I don't have to ask anybody, you know, I'm like, oh, I earned that, or I've decided that's how I want to work today. So that feels really powerful, and I haven't had that in my professional experience until now. So I think it's really cool to have built that, and it took time, but it's worth it.
When you were talking there, all I could, because my brain kind of works in funny ways, I kind of pictured William Wallace from Braveheart, like Mel Gibson running down the hill and yelling, "Freedom!" And it's a great motivator.
A popcorn bucket.
Yeah. Instead of like a big spear or something, a popcorn bucket. Like, I dig that. And it's like freedom and being in control of your own destiny can be such a powerful motivator. You know, like feeling unencumbered from all of the things that are expected of you and being able to chart your own course. I've always been really kind of attracted to that too. Has your motivation changed over time? Like, let's go back and think about 2023 Katelyn again versus 2025 Katelyn. Has your motivation changed? Was there like a catalyst or a holy crap moment that kind of got you shifted into this positive mindset? Was there anything like that happened?
Yeah, I think because there have been so many layoffs happening across the board in really any industry, and there are impacts with AI on job prospects, like, is my job going to go away because of AI? All of those concerns. I just felt like it's really important to take this chance to build something that I own and to work with multiple clients and to have multiple income streams and not put all my eggs in one basket anymore. So I think that it's been empowering to be able to build something, but those early stage, like, I don't have the confidence for this yet, that was real 2 years ago, so I think now it's I just have to have that little pep talk with myself, and even to the point about buying back my own time, basically. What can that mean? It means that I could spend more time with family. I don't have to miss out on things that I used to have to miss events because I decided to work instead, or I couldn't get the time off from my employer, or I felt guilty if I were to miss something work related. And so now that shift means a lot to me, because I could say, no, this family event means much more. And so I'm trying to buy back my time through my business where I can make decisions like that instead.
Yeah. And I've certainly been in my career through layoffs on both sides of it, being the person doing the laying off, and being the person who was laid off, and it sucks on both sides of it. And I remember just very pointedly the feeling that you have in that first kind of period after a layoff happens. Thinking of our audience, you talked about the people who are being laid off right now because of AI. Whether it's the real reason or a cover story is unimportant for our conversation.
Yeah.
Thinking about people who might be going through that, is there any advice that you can give them about adapting to change and persevering through those emotionally turbulent times?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if you're getting that sinking feeling in your stomach that your job is at risk, then believe that, or think about what you're going to do. If there's anything that you can do to control your next move, then does that mean start to look for other employment opportunities, or maybe start smaller and think, what could I build for myself? Is there something that I can do? And it doesn't even have to be in your same profession. It could be shadowing another business. It could be learning something else, but just trying to give yourself the space outside of your job and your stress, and that fear of losing your job can be very crippling too. So even if the layoff hasn't happened or might not actually happen, that's just that fear I've seen in colleagues that are worried about it, because the organization goes through certain rounds of layoffs every now and then. So I think just taking a chance and seeing what it's like to build something for yourself. You don't have to go from replacing your income entirely. I think that was where I got stuck. I can only work full time, or I can only work full time for myself. But that's not necessarily the case. You could have one project a quarter that you do for yourself, along with your other employment opportunity. So maybe seeing if you can experiment with both and see which one you like better, and just give yourself the space to try and build something.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because we anytime anytime I've spoken to a financial advisor, or one of those people who's like, I will help you build your retirement dreams. They're all over the place. You hear from them all the time, and valuable service. But they always talk about diversification in your investment portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And when we're having those conversations, it's completely normal and natural. But when we're thinking about our career, it's the exact opposite. It's not normal or natural to do many things and not put all your eggs in one basket. And maybe that perspective needs to change, right? Maybe we all do need to think kind of like you're thinking, and build multiple income streams, whether or not they're small, large, whatever. Just diversify. Maybe that's smart.
Right. And some employers will be very strict about that you can't, or they frown upon employees having a LinkedIn presence or anything of that nature. And so that's its own red flag. But also, what do you want to do about that? If you still want to build something, then could it be an online course, or do you have experience that you can share with others? And I try to remind myself, and I can't remember where I saw this advice, but try to surround yourself with people professionally that are 2 or 3 years ahead of you that you can learn from, and then think about the people years behind you and how can you give back. So maybe you can design a course or a how-to guide or templates for someone 2 or 3 years behind where you are now that would have been helpful in a project where you wished that someone could have helped you that way. What were your sticking points, and what's now pretty straightforward for you to do day to day that you could give back. So just trying to think about that trajectory and sharing your expertise. How do you package up your knowledge if you are still working full time and your time is not available for project-based work? Can you package up your expertise in a certain way?
Yeah. Let's change gears a little bit and talk about failure. And failure, even the word makes a lot of people deeply, deeply uncomfortable. It took me quite a while to realize that failure is actually one of the best learning opportunities that you can have. Is there something that you are comfortable talking about in your career where you failed, you bombed, and you know that you bombed? And if so, what did you learn from it? What did you take away from the experience?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, that's a good question. I think looking back at my nonprofit career, what I consider to be failures were if I worked on a digital project and then I became the only person that could manage it day to day. And then I'm now the bottleneck. I'm the only person who can use this system. If I go on vacation, the whole thing burns down, that feeling, then I see that as a failure, or the people that were working on the systems weren't comfortable with it enough, or, and sometimes I felt like I wasn't in the decision-making chair, but it looked like I was. So that's why this business came out, the Functional Authority, because I didn't want that to happen or for anyone else to be in that position in their professional career. So maybe this might happen to a nonprofit digital person where they are now responsible for a massive ecosystem project, and it could be their first time doing it. That happened with me. And do they have someone that they could workshop these ideas with and to think about, okay, well, if you make this decision, then the implications are to do scenario planning with someone who has been through it. So I didn't have that all the time in my full-time professional career. And so I have found that that's something I'm really passionate about now, is how could I help someone who is finding themselves in a position like that, where they're about to make decisions for an organization that will impact the next 10 to 20 years. That's a lot of pressure.
That's a heck of an outcome from failure too, right? Like, you have this experience, you consider it a failure, and oh boy, did it ever suck. Wow. And I start a business to help other people avoid that. Like, what a great outcome.
Yeah.
Like if we don't learn and do things from failure, like what's the point of kind of having that reflective experience about what we're doing with our lives? That's really cool. Are there any mentors or books or experiences that really impacted you and influenced you? Is there anything you want to call out to our audience and say, oh, this is really cool, you should look at this?
Yeah, in my kind of early stage of looking around at other people who were also building their businesses, I found just through LinkedIn Dennis Keelan and followed his content, and that's where I signed up for. He had a solopreneur sandbox where every week there were just kind of safe space community sessions that you could join, where you'd learn about all the different topics of creating a scope of work for the first time, or negotiating your pricing structure. And so I think if people are in these early stages, just finding a community space like that, or finding other people that are also building right now, it is so helpful, because then you don't have to do it alone. You can also say, I just Some prospect is willing to have a pitch meeting with me in a couple days. I'm getting ready. Here's my presentation. Like, someone can poke holes in it if they have time. So I found that to be really helpful when it felt very unnatural to me. Yeah. And so I think just recognizing that it's important to have a few people that you can call on and just say, here's a first draft of what I'm working on. What do you think? Does it make sense? Especially if we're not in the same industry. So back to that gut check about, maybe it makes sense to me because this is what I'm thinking about all the time. But for someone else, which is probably my prospect, does this resonate with them, or will it just go over their heads?
Let's go back to feeling unnatural for a second. When you get into that place where what you're trying to accomplish, what you're doing, feels really weird or really unnatural, it seems to me like you're a self-aware enough person to be able to say, this is kind of a barrier, a mental and emotional barrier that conditions have created for me. Do you have any rituals or any tools or anything that you do when you know that you're stuck in that box to help reset yourself and move forward?
Yes. I would try to remind myself that this is not my first time working. Like, even though this is a very different way of working, I do have a lot of experience. So I have to remind myself that I'm just applying it in a different way. And that's actually quite exciting. It's fun to experiment and to step outside of the box a little bit. But it's not, I am capable of going through a project that I need to research and that I don't know about, and I need to learn about it, and then I can speak to it. I've done this before, but it just felt very different, and because my name was on the line. I don't have anyone else on the team. I can't run this up the chain to my supervisors or mentors in that same way that I was used to working in an organization with a clear structure. So now I have found mentors or brain buddy counterparts in a different way. They don't have to work in my business for me to have someone that I can call if I need to talk to somebody about an idea.
Cool. Yeah, the old one foot in front of the other approach, and go knock on the door.
Right.
Thinking about the future, and it's absolutely murky, and it's a little bit like weird to think about what's coming given all the changes that are happening right now. Is there, when we're talking about nonprofits and we're talking about the folks that you really help serve, is there a bet that you are making about the future for that audience, for that customer group, and are preparing for?
Yeah, I think for small business owners that I'm working with, especially as they're navigating a period of growth, it's going to be about, how do you really free yourself up from your own time and step out of your own ways, which I think we're also used to structuring our day by, it's a 40-hour work week, So if they've been able to start to build their own business and they have a few clients and they're starting to build up momentum and they're in a stage where they're bringing on other team members to help, there's going to be a breaking point where it's still about their time ultimately, but now there are more people involved. So I think trying to help with creating a way that they can leverage their expertise instead of their time, and they're able to automate some parts of their journey where maybe a conversation that would have been one-on-one that they have a lot with a prospect or with sets of prospects could be a recording or an interactive workshop that they record. And then the more unique one-on-one pieces that only they can do are where they reserve their time. So just trying to help them take a step back and see, what does automation truly mean for them so that they can scale if that's what they want. And if they don't actually want to scale, then making that decision early so that they don't bite off more than they can chew and their business got too big for what they're actually trying to do.
It's funny, and I'm laughing because you say people biting off more than they can chew. That's my default state. It's been my default state my entire career, and I'm just like, oh yeah, yeah. But it's an interesting thing to think about, right? Because you if you're going to work for yourself, or you're going to have a micro business that maybe employs like 2 people, that natural instinct that kind of like business history and all these stories about entrepreneurship and growth tell us is like, you need to figure out how to grow. You need to figure out how to grow, to scale, and you need to be relentless about becoming like bigger, more resources, more money, more staff. But if you like break yourself away from that expectation and you say, maybe that's not right for this business, maybe that's not what I want, maybe that's not what's best for my employees, you can kind of free yourself from that. And that, like, every instinct that we have as business people is like grow, but maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should figure out how to be sustainable and level out at a certain point.
Exactly. Right. And I'm navigating that for myself right now. So I'm helping clients with it, but I'm also wondering, is this going to be a one-person business for me? And am I happy with that? And right now, very much so. So I don't want to start investing in scale if that's not where I want to go. But some of the clients I'm working with are navigating that too. So I just think if it becomes too big and that wasn't actually what you were hoping to do, then it's harder to scale your business back down, and that can feel like a failure, so trying to get ahead of that and have those conversations about, do you actually want it to get much bigger than that, and what does that mean to you? And then you'll have to kind of share your expertise with the next level of people that you'll trust to deliver the same quality product that you're delivering, or automating pieces that you would normally take on yourself.
Yeah. So I suspect, given what we just talked about, that I know what the answer to this question is already going to be. But let's say that amongst our audience, someone at home is considering walking the same path that you've walked. They're thinking like, oh, I've been thinking about doing something like what Katelyn's talking about. And maybe I'm going to start. What would your advice for them be?
I would say start building for yourself. Build a project or a prototype, or build your own portfolio first if you don't have that yet, so that you're able to show someone, this is what I do. And I think for me, I only really had that with my previous employment experiences. And so I didn't yet have, here's how I want to work, and here's what it looks like as a consultant, relationship with me. And so if I could go back, that's what I would have started with, is a proof of concept, or here's how I tackle a project. Here's how I tackle an early stage website build or something. And I was more concerned about trying to find a client, of course, So I think if you do have a stable employment opportunity right now, then this is a good time to try to build your first prototype, or to think about, what does consulting look like for me, and how would I want to build a pricing model, or what am I even trying to sell, or what does my future state look like if I had my own business, and just try to visualize it so that you can build your first few sets of projects around it.
Yeah, it's good advice. I know so many people who just kind of like dive in, and they're like, I'm going to do something, and they start and they go to it, and that's cool. But then they circle back and they go left and they go right, and they realize that they made so many missteps along the way. Whereas if you just kind of sat down at the start and said, let's figure out what I'm doing and how I'm going to do it, and then like prototype based around that, I would say that a lot of time. I know I would have, if I would have been able to take the advice that you just gave like 5 years ago.
Me too. I know. Yeah, trying to make sure that you're not investing too much into systems and tools without seeing if clients would even want your product or service. So it's really expensive when you're the one fronting the bill on all of your tools, or your online learning program, or whatever it is. So just trying to see, here's a low lift example of how I work, and then shop that around with your key target and prospects and see if anyone will take a bite, and then build from there without investing too much of your own time and your money into something that maybe no one will actually buy.
Cool. Well, Katelyn, wonderful conversation. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. I'm glad that you could join us today. I'm going to put links to all of Katelyn's stuff in the show notes, folks. So, don't worry about running for a pen and paper. But Katelyn, tell us how the people at home who are listening can find you. Are you on the LinkedIn? You have a website, I'm sure. Just give us a little pitch for yourself and what you do.
Absolutely. And thanks again, Paul, for the opportunity to be here. So if you'd like to reach out anyone, then LinkedIn or my website, and then you can sign up too if you'd like for a free strategy call. Those are my favorites, because then I can just learn from you about what you're working on and give you some advice. And if eventually you need any more help, that's where you can also find me. But I love hearing what people are working on.
And as we touched on at the start of the show, you are someone who gives value at each and every step of the way. So even if that strategy call doesn't go somewhere, you will probably get something really great out of it, folks. Katelyn McArdle, founder of Functional Authority LLC. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to catching up with you in the future and seeing what your journey has in store.
Thanks for tuning in to the Journey in Conversation. If you liked this episode, follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. More builders, more breakthroughs, coming soon.